Let's talk about how to keep your students from using Google Translate in your Spanish classes. Hey, it's Ashley, aka Señorita Spanish, where I provide easy-to-use resources to save you time and energy, and sometimes we sit down and we have tricky conversations like this one. If you're new here, I just wanted to make sure you knew that links to everything that I mentioned will be in the description box below. It happened. You gave your students an assessment or an assignment, you're sitting down to grade them, and you are like amazed at how good they did on this test. Floored. Astounded, even. You've never seen language like this before from your students? It's really good. Like, suspiciously so. You're probably like 90% sure that that student did not produce that language. Now what? You give them a 0, you make them retake it, you have the talk with your classes again. What do? I hate to break it to you, but I have no magical fixes. Google Translate is here, and it is here to stay. Plus, it has gotten like crazy good over the past few years. Even the last decade, it's gotten so much better than it used to be. Sure, there are some things that you see it and it totally gives a student away, but those are getting fewer and further between, at least in my opinion and my experience. So we're going to talk about our options and the plan moving forward for how to handle translators. I'm saving my favorite and what I think is the most important tip for the end, so make sure you stick around because I really want to hear your thoughts on it. Before we get into it, I really want to know, have you ever had a student use Google Translate in your classes? Yes or no? Comment below and let me know if you've ever experienced this. Tip number 1 is to make your expectations clear. I've shared before about how important your syllabus is, and this is one of those things that I think needs to be addressed on your syllabus right from day 1, maybe even before day 1 if you have like a back to school night or something like that. Your rules about translators need to be on here, clear, and communicated from the very start. My second tip is to make sure your admin is on board with whatever those policies are. So you're communicating your policies ahead of time to your parents, to your guardians, to your students, making sure everybody knows. Loop your admin in on that conversation, even before you tell parents, guardians, and students what your rules are. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen posts in Facebook groups or online that say like, I caught student cheating with a translator, like there is zero doubt. They, maybe even have posted the example where you're like, it's clear that person, 2 weeks into Spanish was not using the subjunctive and they're not, outputting in this particular way because they've never had that modeled for them before, right? There is no doubt in any one language teacher's mind that this happened. And then they went to their admin about it and their admin said, oh, well, using a translator isn't cheating. That could be avoided if you have that conversation before any of these kinds of situations or scenarios occur. Make sure your admin is cool with like an academic dishonesty report, or if you're going to give them a 0, or if you're going to give them a 0 but require them to retake it and have that 0 until they've retaken it. Whatever your plan is for the punishment or the consequences of cheating with a translator, your admin needs to understand that a translator is cheating. I also want you to be realistic. I think we are far, like eons past the sentence where you say, you're not always going to have one of those in your pocket. Hello, cell phones. You will forever always have a translator literally in your pocket. Pretty much always. They will have access to this. That argument just doesn't work anymore. Instead, I think we need to kind of fight to show our students when and how to rely on the tool. You can't have a meaningful conversation with someone if you are literally Googling every single word you're trying to say and just reading it to them. Maybe in a pinch, right, if you're stuck and you really need that to happen, but if you were trying to connect on a meaningful, personal level and get to build a relationship with that person, a translator is not going to replace this human element of coming to someone and communicating to them in their language, talking to them in the language that they grew up speaking, or a shared language that you both have taken the time to learn. There is a piece of respect to that I personally don't think translators are going to replace in the future unless they get like crazy good robot. I personally think that part of being realistic about the ubiquitousness of translators is that we have to model for them how to use them and when. So when we do stories in class and we're doing story asking in particular, and students raise their hand with something that is awesome, perfect, hilarious for the story, but I don't know how to say it, I say, okay, hold on, and I pull up wordreference.com on my screen in front of all my students, and I model to them how we're gonna look up that particular word, phrase, activity, whatever the thing is, because the things they come up with, like, what? So I walk them through, how do we look this up? And then, especially if there's multiple responses, I talk them through my thought process for choosing which word we are going to use. Next tip is to do your best to avoid the opportunity for cheating, which I know is easier said than done, but projects get done in class, writing gets done in class, obviously tests get done in class. I really stopped giving homework for the most part too, as much as possible, especially what I would do is try and give them as much time as I thought that they needed in class, and then just be circulating and paying attention to are they on task? Are they working? How far are they getting? And if they were working really hard and just not, I totally was off in my estimation. Okay, everyone, this is not due tomorrow. We're gonna have some time in class tomorrow to work on this, or that sort of thing. Really getting away from outside of class work. Swapping to an in-class focused setup just means that I just have to watch the computers, tablets, cell phones, and smartwatches, inside of water bottle wrappers, gum wrappers. But it's still better than sending them home to do it on their own time, I think. It's not perfect, but it does help. My favorite way to include writing in class is through timed writing. You can learn more about this activity on my blog, and I will make sure to put a link to it in the description below. Last but not least, I think this is my favorite tip for avoiding translators altogether, so I can't wait to hear what you think. Shift your expectations and theirs. Easier said than done, but I think it's really important. Sometimes I think students, parents, guardians have this warped sense of time of how long it takes to learn a language. Have you ever had a parent say, oh, we're taking so-and-so on our spring break trip to Mexico and I can't wait for them to translate for the whole family? This is a Spanish 1 student. They will have had 4 months of Spanish class by the time you're going to spring break. That's gonna go well. Not to say that they can't, communicate a little bit, but translating for the whole trip is just an unrealistic expectation at that point. I personally really, really like the ice cream scoop proficiency example bulletin board from Spanish Plans. It's really helpful to show them where they are at and where we are working to be through visuals and text examples of what the language that they should be able to produce will look like. I think that when students have a better idea of what we're looking for in a more concrete example, they're less likely to try and reach way out of bounds to try and produce language that just really isn't realistic for where they are right now, and how that's okay. It's okay to be producing language that maybe sounds a little caveman-ish because you've been taking Spanish for 2 weeks. That's fine, or a year, whatever. You've only been in X amount of hours of Spanish class. This is what your proficiency level should look like at this point, and you're doing a great job with where you are right now. That is so important for them to understand and for their parents and guardians to understand. So everybody is communicating this appropriately and everyone understands what their language should look like. I think we also need to take a look at our assessments and our activities and make sure that we aren't trying to push them too far out of the proficiency level just because of what we've asked them to do. What tips would you recommend for helping reduce the use of Google Translate in your classroom? Please comment below and let me know what has worked for you or what you've tried that did not work at all. Comment below and let me know, how do you combat Google Translate in your classes? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you like it. Click subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified of all new content I create for you in the future. Thanks! And thanks so much for watching. YouTube is going to recommend a video that it thinks that you are going to like over here on the screen. And because we just finished a whole video talking about how smart computers have gotten, if they say you're going to like it, they're probably right. Yeah? Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.